way of behaving, our way of holding ourselves. Everything needs a new Christianization. We must become more aware of the Christ within us.
First published in 1981 and long out of print, The Holy Angels by Mother Alexandra has yet to be surpassed as a comprehensive and comprehensible account of the nature of the angels and their role in our salvation. In layperson's terms, Mother Alexandra presents the essence of everything the Church has to teach us about the angels, beginning with the Old Testament, continuing through the New Testament, and concluding with the tradition of the Church as expressed in her theology, hymnography, and iconography. For those who long to become better acquainted with these holy servants of God and to understand their role in our lives, this book is a great place to start. Available now at store.ancientfaith.com. Again, that is store.ancientfaith.com.
Proclaiming Christ, victor over sin and death. You're listening to Ancient Faith Radio, your Orthodox Internet radio connection.
This is Ancient Faith Today with Father Tom Soroka, a weekly live call-in show addressing the issues of our day from a distinctly Orthodox perspective. You can join the conversation by calling in at 855-237-2346. That's 855-AF-RADIO. Father Tom is the priest at St. Nicholas Orthodox Church in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and welcomes guests from across the globe to discuss important topics of interest. Here's Father Tom.
Welcome to Ancient Faith Today. This is Father Tom Soroka, and I'm so glad that you're with us this evening. We'll be taking your calls in a bit at 1-855-AF-RADIO. That's 1-855-237-2346. Matushka Trudy will be answering your calls tonight, so please make sure to turn the show volume off before you come on air. Now, to participate online, we encourage you to go either to the AFM Facebook page at facebook.com/Ancient Faith Ministries and place a question in the thread for tonight's show where it is being live simulcast, or you can go to facebook.com/Ancient Faith Today and place a question there in the thread for tonight's show. You can even send us an email at aft@ancientfaith.com. So let's get started. As a parent of late millennials and Gen Zers, it's clear that they have a certain generational perspective on the world, a world that is much different than the one that I grew up in. What they see as important and what they want to do with their lives is quite different from what people wanted even 20 years ago. And indeed, the world is different today. They have challenges that I didn't have. For instance, education is much more expensive, and the prospect for work is uneven. Most profoundly, the challenges of the world's values forming them to become entirely secular is one of the greatest threats of all, whether they acknowledge that or not. On the other hand, we know from surveys that the members of Generation Z are ambitious when they have work that inspires them. They tend to thrive on social interaction and want to do work that is meaningful to them. They want to work for organizations that impact the world in big ways. And they can think creatively about solving problems in ways that others wouldn't naturally see. So, how do we combine the energy and inspiration of a generation wanting to do good things in the world with the added goal of forming young adults to be devoted followers of Christ as Orthodox Christians? Tonight, we are excited to have two guests who have created an organization that will provide opportunities for meaningful and impactful work to help the lives of others and for their own spiritual growth. Kyra Limberakis is director of the Crossroads Summer Institute and assistant director of the Office of Vocation and Ministry at Hellenic College, Holy Cross Greek Orthodox School of Theology. She received her bachelor's degree from Villanova University and her Master of Theological Studies from the Boston College School of Theology and Ministry. And Michael Sider Rose attended the University of Pittsburgh for a PhD in history. He worked with Chicago's Semester, a faith-based, off-campus, experiential learning program, and then created a similar program in Pittsburgh. He then worked for the Coro Center for Civic Leadership, where he served for nearly 13 years. Kyra and Michael, welcome to Ancient Faith Today.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Thank you, Father.
I'm
so glad to be here.
Very happy to have you. I just want to remind you, we're hearing a little bit of feedback. So if you're wearing headphones, maybe just try to turn the volume down a little so that we're not getting that. We are very, very happy to have you on the program today. And I know this is a very exciting time for you because you've poured both your hearts into forming this program. I know that you have very exciting news, and I give that to you about the Assembly of Bishops. But before we actually get to the Orthodox Volunteer Corps, I'd like to learn a little bit about yourselves and your work and your background in the church, which kind of combined all of those elements to form this magnificent organization, which is being launched very soon. So, Kyra, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background in the church.
Sure. Thank you, Father. So I grew up in the Orthodox Church, had very devout parents and grandparents who always encouraged me to participate in the life of the church, both, obviously on Sundays, but then also during our summers where we went to, Camp Nazareth, Camp Good Shepherd, Ionian Village, Crossroads. So those opportunities for me when I was a young person were incredibly formative. When I went to college at Villanova University, I encountered a lot of friends who were interested in doing, long-term service programs after they graduated. And that's really what kind of got me interested in this idea of a year of service and a long-term service program. So I would say, where I come from, is a devout family who really raised me in the faith, led me to, want to pursue theological studies and work with youth and young adult ministry. But my experience at Villanova also was very formative. So that's a little bit about, who I am.
Thank you very much. Hey, Kyra, we may be getting some feedback from your speakers or something, and I think we're kind of getting that from, and it's hard to tell whether it's coming from Kyra or Michael. So we have to make sure that if you're, we encourage you to wear headphones, and if you have those, just turn them down so that others can't hear it, and so forth. But thank you for doing that, and we appreciate all of your work. Michael, tell us a little bit about your background and your background in the church and how this all came to fruition.
Sure. How's the feedback on my end at the moment?
At this point, it sounds
Is the feedback
good.
Okay or not? Okay,
yes,
great.
It's good now.
So unlike Kyra, I didn't grow up in the Orthodox Church. I actually grew up Protestant in a small denomination, the Mennonite Church. And the thing that I would highlight about my growing up years is that I grew up in a lower income interracial neighborhood in Philadelphia. And I was a part first of a sort of an intentional Christian community that was in that neighborhood. And then we eventually joined an interracial congregation in a low-income neighborhood of Philadelphia. And the thing that strikes me about that experience and that has been very formative for me there was the power of a Christian community that was working at holistic development in a low-income neighborhood, a Christian community that was really devoted to racial justice within the congregation, finding a way to live out really the beloved community that in many ways I think Martin Luther King Jr. and the civil rights movement were seeking for in a deep way. And so those were powerful experiences for me in thinking about how does my faith get lived out in the world. I had some beautiful examples of that. As an adult, then,
good.
I came to Orthodoxy and journey that you can speak about at a different time. But so I did come to Orthodoxy as an adult, and I was so grateful to find the church and to become a part of it, and to then be moved by liturgy and molded by liturgy. And the piece that wasn't as present for me when I first came in, I didn't know some of the outreach programs that actually began to really develop more and more as I was participating more in the church. And so then I got involved in Pittsburgh, when Focus came to Pittsburgh. I got involved then later when the Neighborhood Resilience Project formed in Pittsburgh. And so it's been just a beautiful journey for me to be able to see these incredible outreach programs now in the Orthodox Church, and I've seen that with IOCC and other ministries, to see that and to now be a part of that in what we'll talk about in terms of the formation of Orthodox Volunteer Corps.
Great. And of course, we've had Father Paul on here several times, I believe, and I know him personally very well. Our parish is very involved with the Neighborhood Resilience Project, formerly Focus Pittsburgh. And I wanted to say, as a kind of introduction, that for those people that aren't aware, this idea of a volunteer corps, of course, is not uniquely Orthodox. That is, there is AmeriCorps, there is the Peace Corps, and I believe that your program, correct me if I'm wrong, is based on that model with, of course, a very Orthodox emphasis. Is that correct?
That's absolutely right. So there are many examples of programs like Orthodox Volunteer Corps. So these are programs that provide a number of different things. Like they provide an intensive opportunity for service. Is usually an intensive thing that's sort of endeavor, and then there's an opportunity for various kinds of formation, right? And often communal living, and we can talk about each of these components. But there's a bunch of these out there, right? In different denominations: the Lutheran Volunteer Corps, the Jesuit Volunteer Corps. Mennonites have voluntary service. There's an Episcopal Service Corps, and it goes on and on. And what really struck Kyra and I about this was there's a very strong model out there, right? And we're doing some work actually we can make it even stronger, but there's a strong model out there. But the Orthodox Church didn't have it, with an Orthodox ethos and Orthodox framework, and that was really, really important to us. I know, Kyra, you know a lot about Jesuit Volunteer Corps. I don't know if you'd say a word about the that and how we've modeled some things off that.
Sure. So that's definitely a well-respected organization. As I was saying, many of my friends participated in the program and really had a transformative experience where they worked in communities in these nonprofits that really taught them a lot about what it means to love their neighbor, what it means to seek justice, for the poor and the marginalized, and so. Rooted, similarly in their model of, working at a nonprofit and living community, we really see them as, a model example of a program. But as Michael said, it was really important to us that there was an Orthodox component of this that undergirded the whole initiative. And that's really what OVC is. It's an Orthodox Volunteer Corps.
Excellent. So, Kyra, tell us then, and both of you really, sort of paint the picture of what the purpose of the Orthodox Volunteer Corps is.
Sure. Well, we have two core goals. And the first one is to increase young adult engagement in the Orthodox Church through service and formation. And the second goal is that, driven by Orthodox young adults, we want to increase church engagement in effective service to the world. And so Orthodox Volunteer Corps is a pan-Orthodox national venture that will invest a year in Orthodox young adults so that they can serve for a lifetime. And that's kind of our catchphrase, our motto, really, is to invest this year in the lives of young adults ages 21 to 29 through 4 transformative encounters. And those 4 transformative encounters include service and solidarity with our neighbors, formation, training and leadership in faith, communal living, and then, of course, church, participating in the life of the local parish. Michael, would you add anything to that?
You said it great.
Great.
Yeah, I would want to make sure, because I sort of understand the model, but some people may not really understand that. So at a 50,000 foot view, tell us a little bit about what that actually means. So you have these different components. Would one of these young adults, would they be working every day? Would that be sort of like a full-time position? I don't want to get too much into the details right now, but in other words, are you talking about, they're going for 1 hour a week to work at a soup kitchen, or is this something much different than that?
We're talking here about a full-time immersive program. And so we can talk later about how we've also got a part-time program, but what we're focusing on here is a full-time immersive program. So someone would come, they would work 4 days a week, and full days at a nonprofit that we would connect them with and we would match them with. And so they get that hands-on experience and being able to really immerse themselves in that nonprofit, being able to really understand in the work when it gets difficult, right? Understand the particular needs of a community, understand the strengths of a community. So they would do that. And so it's almost full time, right, at that nonprofit. And that's a 10-month placement. So again, this is a really, I think, rather, intense and profound professional experience, right? So that's one piece that's really, really important. The other piece that Kyra mentioned that is essential is that 1 day a week they will be in a seminar that we will design and run, and that seminar is about formation in the faith and about leadership development, because we want to make sure that these folks are equipped, right, to be effective at their work, equipped to be effective in work for the church and for the world. And so that full-time nature of it, that immersive nature of it is really important. This is not just kind of dipping your finger in for an hour. This is intensive, work.
I see. Very, very good. So we want to remind our listeners, the phone number to call in if you have any questions or comments is 1-855-AF-RADIO. That's 1-855-237-2346. Maybe you have served in one of these other volunteer corps that Michael and Kyra mentioned about. You'd like to tell us about your experience about that. We'd love to hear from you. Or maybe you have a young adult that you believe would benefit from this program. Give us a call at 1-855-AF-RADIO. So, Kyra, I understand that there was some big news a few weeks back about the Assembly of Bishops. Can you tell us what relationship now does the Orthodox Volunteer Corps have with the Assembly of Bishops?
Thank you, Father, for introducing that. We are so honored and excited to share that just a couple of weeks ago, Michael and I had the chance to travel to Washington, D.C., where we presented to the Assembly of Bishops on Orthodox Volunteer Corps. And actually, for those who don't know, the Assembly of Bishops commissioned our original working group. So 2 years ago, when this idea first emerged, the Assembly of Bishops was incredibly supportive and said, okay, we're going to commission a group to really formally explore this. And so, for 2 years, we've had representatives from various Orthodox organizations stepping forward to help really build this. So Michael and I are just part of a team, really. I'd like to say that, and we're so grateful for them. So we were then invited to actually go to their formal meeting where they made an official decision. We gave a presentation and they decided to vote on Orthodox Volunteer Corps becoming an official agency of the Assembly. For those
That's
who aren't
amazing.
familiar or don't really know exactly what that means, if you think about organizations like OCMC, IOCC, OCF, etc., those are just a few of the Orthodox agencies. And so we are just so grateful for the opportunity to have that official agency status and have the blessing of the bishops and really their backing along the way.
Yeah, that's a really good thing and amazing. I actually didn't know about the 2-year study and consultation that you underwent there to form this ministry. Michael, tell us just a little bit about that. What was that experience like, and what kind of input and ideas were you thinking about with these other people? I find that very, very fascinating that this was really a sort of a communal decision, and this wasn't just, one person's idea, but it was something that organically grew out of these discussions. How did that actually work?
So it was really lovely how organic it was. When we first gathered 2 years ago, it was a meeting called to address the question of homelessness, the issue of homelessness. And when we were there, a bunch of different people began to say the same thing. If we want to address homelessness or any social issue, what we've got to have are people who are prepared. We've got to have leaders who are ready, who have a heart and a mind and a soul to challenges. Not only that, a bunch of people at this meeting were using the very same language. They were saying what we need is an Orthodox Volunteer Corps. And as people from the following organizations began to meet, right? OCMC, Project Mexico, Focus North America, the Neighborhood Resilience Project, OCF, right? St. Basil Academy. And so it was, and then of course representatives from the Assembly of Bishops. And Kyra, if I'm missing anyone, please jump in.
Crossroad.
A crossroad, of course.
Yes,
Kyra.
Very important.
So all these folks were meeting then, and what we did then over a stretch of 2 years is a combination of things. First, we broke into different teams and looked at, okay, so what would a curriculum look like, right? We had another team that was thinking about infrastructure, right? We had another team that was looking at some other models of programs and getting feedback. And so, we, for a period of time, we were meeting every week for a stretch, and it was just a lovely collaborative effort, from the beginning, and then emerged organically a point when so we have we formed a board then, and became an independent nonprofit, began fundraising, right? And then this is actually remarkable. It was the day that Kyra and I presented at the Assembly of Bishops was the first day I had left my job of almost 13 years working in leadership development.
Wow.
And I became full-time with Orthodox Volunteer Corps. I'm serving as the CEO. And that first day was when we presented to the bishops. It was incredible.
That is amazing. And it almost seems like divine providence and the Holy Spirit bringing everybody together to be able to conceive and now launch such a laudable program. 1-855-AF Radio. Give us a call if you have a question about the Orthodox Volunteer Corps. So I do have a question, and that is, why is work in the community, that is, working for people in need, working sort of for racial peace and so forth, why is that important in forming young adult Orthodox Christians? Because, as you know, I don't know if you know, Kyra, of course, Michael knows that my particular parish is in the inner city. It's in a fairly depressed area. And so, we do some of that work there in our area, but I will tell you, to get the parish to that point where they felt comfortable getting outside of the walls was, it took many years of, this is the right thing to do, and convincing and training and so forth. So, Kyra, tell us why work in the community is so important? Why can't we just work with our own people? You know, why can't they go to a church and then just help old people or something? Why is it that we have to engage with the community outside the walls of the church?
Sure. I appreciate this question. And I'd also love for Michael to jump in when I conclude. You know, first and foremost, this is our calling. You know, we look to Christ as our example. And did Christ only speak to his own? No, he went out to especially those on the margins of society, right? To the prostitutes, the tax collectors, the lepers, those who were seen as, you know, the least of the least, and really, you know, were considered less than human. That was his ministry in many ways, was to the poor and the suffering. And that's what we're called to do, you know, clothe the naked, you know, care for the sick, feed the hungry. And to me, when I think especially not just about Christ, but about the early church and how early Christians really took on that call, you know, they were the ones to form hospitals and orphanages, and Christians were known for their care for others. And that's what we see in young adults. You know, I've been working with youth and young adults in the Orthodox Church for 10 years now through my work with Crossroad and other ministries. And I see that in young people. There's a desire that, you know, they see these issues in society and they want to respond. It's, you know, this gut instinct of wanting to respond and really to take what they're learning in the church and bring it outside the walls of the community. I think of, you know, St. John Chrysostom, who has this really bold, you know, statement where he says, if you can't find Christ in the beggar outside the church, you won't be able to find him in the chalice. And so, you know, first and foremost, to me, this is our calling, and we're called to alleviate the sufferings of other people. And you know, yes, are there people suffering in our communities? Of course, and we need to, you know, address that and be good community members within our Orthodox context. But what does it mean to be, you know, to truly immerse ourselves in the whole community, in our neighborhoods, outside the walls of our parish, and really understand, you know, what's going on and what can we do to alleviate the sufferings of other persons. And so that's something that I really think is just so formative for young people. It's already in them, you know, but then when you give them the opportunity to connect that with their faith, I just think it provides this really transformative experience. So that's what I would say, Michael. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Michael, I was going to ask you that, you know, a lot of your work history is involved in community efforts and so forth. So I guess I do want to ask you also your opinion on this. You know, why is it important to get our young people out into the community? But I did want to ask you first, do you think that there is a sort of a generational view that is different, say, from people my age, as opposed to young people of today who find that work very, very important?
I certainly think there's deep desire on the part of young adults to serve, and I think that, you know, in a variety of ways, we saw that recently with the conversation about the national reckoning on race, and so I think that's absolutely present for young adults, and I've seen it time and time again in the folks that I've worked with, and I think that I would add to this part of the conversation is, number one, I agree 100% with Kyra that, like, the fundamental we should be doing this community service as a means of formation for young adults, Orthodox Christians, is that is what we are called to do, right? That is the fundamental reason. Secondary reason, and this relates now to community work as well as, you know, community work with young adults in particular, I think that there is something really powerful about service, especially service when one is stretched, service when one is encountering those who are different and who have a particular, you know, kind of need that is very visible, maybe. And the thing that makes that powerful is that when we do leadership development, I think it's really important that we recognize that we are stretched and we grow when we come to sort of our limits, right? We are stretched when we grow when we encounter conflict and ambiguity and struggle. And that happens when one reaches out in service, in even when it is a struggle, maybe especially, when it is a struggle. And so I think it's a powerful moment for learning.
Very, very good. All right, so we actually have a caller, but I'm still unclear whether they're coming on the show or whether they're asking a question. Trudy, is the caller on the line? I think the caller just is asking a question. So the caller wants to know what, Oh, okay, very good. Caller, welcome to Ancient Faith Today. You're on the line with Kyra Limberakis and Michael Sider-Rose.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Congratulations on your establishment of your passion. And thank you for everything you all do with Ancient Faith Radio. This is Demetria from Dallas. I'm sorry I didn't get to meet everyone this weekend. But Mike, so I should already know the answer to this question, but maybe there's somebody that needs the answer as well. But what, and I think you kind of touched on it, there's so many different, there's OCF, there's Crossroads, there's, my son did Mexico, I forgot what it's called, Mission Mexico.
Project Mexico.
Project Mexico, thank you. And now he's with OCF, and they,
wow.
They gather, within the college. I remember graduating college and working for AAA, and people would come in saying they're joining the Corps, and I didn't know what the Corps was. Is that what this is, where you go to other countries to volunteer to help? Or is it locally leaders getting together? What exactly is the goal of the mission? What is the mission of the group?
Good question.
So first off, this is very similar to the Peace Corps, but a domestic version. So folks would not go abroad to serve here in the United States. So this is a domestic program. That's the first thing. The second thing is that this program is for folks 21 to 29 years old. So it's after college age, right? It's after folks would go, through Crossroad, or that's very intent is create a complementary program, right? Because we believe Crossroad and OCF and Project Mexico are doing tremendous things, right? What we recognized, right, was that when folks get into their 20s, which is a very, very development, there are fewer in the Orthodox Church. And because that period of time is so essential, right? And because we know that there's a lot of interest in a full-time program like this for at that age, we really wanted to do the work of developing it.
Oh, I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy this is happening. Thank you so much. I'll tell my son, be on the lookout for Kostakis. You should be Costa.
Great.
That's fantastic. Good. Very good.
Thank you so much for taking my call.
Excellent. 1-855-AF radio. That's 1-855-237-2346. I'm just curious, if this takes off, Michael and Kyra, maybe there would be an opportunity to open it up to other age groups. I think there are other very talented people that would, like the opportunity to serve and to grow spiritually and serve. Do you think that, might be down the road? Let's dream a little. What do you think?
Kyra, you can talk about.
That's a great question. Well, first of all, we're so excited to share that already, as we mentioned, this has been a very collaborative process. Already we're collaborating with Orthodox Christian Fellowship, which is the college campus ministry. We hosted a day of service in collaboration with OCF. We are going to help organize, 2 real break trips. So the, week-long service trips that OCF runs. So we're already kind of, we have our hands down in the college age range, which is really exciting. And we're so grateful for, the invitation from OCF to collaborate on that. But certainly I think, long-term, Michael and I, we dream a lot and we think a lot about the long-term plans of OVC, which includes expansion to, multiple cities, but also, could our full-time core members, right, the young adults who are immersed in, the full-time program, could they, host a high school age group for a weekend at their nonprofit? What are ways that we can really integrate the whole community? How can they get parishes involved? And so, certainly nothing is concrete at this point, but we do know that we really see the young adults who graduate from this program really immersing themselves in parish life and in their communities in such a way that, the service that they experienced in OVC is something that it can extend beyond just that year, and we can involve more people in this good work. Because service,
Very good.
OVC, is really just a vessel in some ways, a really formative vessel. And we hope that, our young adults who graduate from the program go off to bring others into that good work.
Sure.
And
Very good.
One thing I would say, sorry.
Yeah, please. Go ahead.
I was going to add just one thing about expansion, and that is that, so, Kyra talked about expansion geographically, right, to different cities, and hey, maybe we can move to Dallas, where the caller was from. Although we imagine, we're going to start in Pittsburgh, and then we think, probably Boston next, and then go from there. But the other form of expansion, I think it's really important to talk about that we haven't really addressed yet, is having a part-time program. So we've described primarily the full-time program. We also want to do then a part-time program in each city in which we set up, where folks who are in the same age range, 21 to 29, who want to participate in service but already have a full-time job, right? Or maybe they're in school full-time, and so they can't do the full-time program where they're working 4 days a week and then 1 day a week in seminar. And those full-time folks also will live in community with one another, and then be very engaged in the church, right? The other piece is that for the part-time folks, what we want to do then is give them an opportunity to experience some of the same curriculum, the leadership development, the formation in Orthodox faith, in an evening seminar, right? And then have some service opportunities for them, right? That would happen again outside of work hours. And then we want to combine the strength of the full-time program and the part-time program, so that both of those groups together can really be leaders in the church to initiate innovative service that connects church and society, right? And so we're excited about that form of expansion as well.
That's very cool. 1-855-AF radio. So what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have you sort of unpack the whole thing. What does a day in the life of an OVC core member look like? What are they going to do? Where are they going to work? Where are they going to sleep? Et cetera, et cetera. When we come back, we'll get to that. We will be right back.
Father Tom will be back in a moment. In the meantime, the lines are open at 855-237-2346. Don't go away.
As Orthodox Christians, we sometimes find it difficult to effectively explain our faith to friends from another tradition. Over the centuries since the Great Schism, the Eastern and Western churches have diverged to the point that we often don't understand each other's vocabulary. Father Michael Shambor has written a book that can help. Know the Faith, a handbook for Orthodox Christians and inquirers. Frederica Matthews Green calls it the toolkit any Orthodox could use to respond to questions and critiques of other Christians. With quotations from the Scriptures and the Fathers supporting Orthodox faith and practice, Know the Faith will help you understand and communicate the Orthodox faith as never before. Order your copy now. Know the Faith. Look for it when you visit the store at ancientfaith.com.
We're back with Ancient Faith Today and Father Tom Soroka. Give us a call at 855-237-2346. Here once again is Father Tom.
We are back with Kyra Limberakis and Michael Sider-Rose talking about the Orthodox Volunteer Corps. So here's my next question, guys. I want to know, walk me through a typical week for, what one of the core members are going to be doing. Where do they stay? Where do they live? Where do they get their meals? The whole thing. I want to know it all. Who wants to start?
Kyra, why don't you lead?
Sure. So first of all, we are lining up our nonprofit placement partners, which is where our young adults will be placed during their year. We know that one of them will be actually the Neighborhood Resilience Project. So Michael, you might be able to speak a little bit more directly to what type of work they would be doing. So anyway, they would, be living in their communal housing that we will have found for them. So, for a core member, you are provided a small living stipend to cover your food and transportation needs. You are also, provided the house. And you would, go to work. Well, first of all, your cohort that you're living with, you would determine kind of your house rules, how you do meals, how you cook, how you clean, etc. But if it's day 1 through 4, you would be working at your nonprofit and working on particular projects that your site supervisor has designed for you. So that's something that's really important for us, is that the nonprofits themselves have specific projects that the young adults are going to be working on and goals that they want to meet. So, so they would be working in their nonprofit, engaging in the life of the local community in whatever way that nonprofit encourages. And of course, how their cohort encourages, and gaining that, tremendous professional experience. So that, that would be the day working at the nonprofit itself. Michael could speak a little bit to the day when they're in seminar, but, the logistics that I think are really important for young adults to be aware of is that, their food, their transportation, their housing would be, covered through the stipend and through support from OVC. This is also a program that would qualify for student loan deferment. So, we know student loan debt is it's a crisis in our country. And so it's something that we want to make sure that we can, do our best to meet the needs of our students who are coming in. Also, if it's something that's needed, we would be able to provide health insurance for our young adult core members. So those are some of the logistics of kind of their day-to-day experience. Good. I know, those are things that young people need to be aware of. But Michael, would you want to say a little bit about seminar?
Yeah, before we go to the seminar day, let's talk a little bit about the kind of work. Michael, give us some general ideas. I know you don't have the partners completely lined up yet, but again, tell us what kind of work that they would be doing potentially.
Sure, I can actually speak in some specifics because we are in conversation with partners, even though we haven't secured them all. So one thing is that we always want to try to get an Orthodox organization in every city in which we're posted up, if possible, right? And that's absolutely true in Pittsburgh. So we're going to have the Neighborhood Resilience Project will be one of the placements. And for those of you who've listened to the show before and you've heard Father Paul, a bit about that. But the Neighborhood Resilience Project does trauma-informed community development. And there's a suite of programs that are associated with that, but does all of this from an Orthodox perspective. So that's one example, right? I was just in a meeting last week with an African-American pastor in the Homewood neighborhood in Pittsburgh, and that church including a community garden. They've got an after-school program. That's a congregation, and because of their, essentially they've got a nonprofit that runs as well. We will almost certainly have some folks, a person placed there. I've been in conversation with a homeless shelter that's a fairly large one in the city that has capacity to take an Orthodox Volunteer Corps member. Got a meeting coming up soon with an urban gardening venture. That would be another possibility. There's been a conversation with an after-school program. Actually, it's not even just after school. It's beyond that for youth development, right? So there's a range of different nonprofits. And the thing that I'll just say is that we will always look for nonprofits where we know we can get a strong supervisor. And as Kyra mentioned, where we know we can get a really clear description so that people are doing capacity building work as well as direct service, and knowing that we've got that clarity really can make for a very to one where there's nothing to do, or it doesn't seem like meaningful work.
Yeah, I would worry that somebody would be in a corner back somewhere stuffing envelopes or something like that instead of meaningful work. So what you're saying is there's going to be an emphasis on making sure that the partners are providing, real hands-on work with people, helping them in ways that are appropriate.
That's exactly right. And I know from my experience, working in this realm, that if you design things well, right, if you have the conversations beforehand with placement partners to be very clear about what you're looking for, if you then have a good application process, and there we do have that for OVC, where the placement partners also have to apply, right, and you line up very clearly, responsibilities, and then if you maintain supervision after that, right, the connection with that partner, you can get really, really good placements.
Good. And I apologize, I interrupted you. So that's the 4-day of the 5-day work week. What happens on the 5th day?
Sure. So there will be a seminar that will happen 1 day a week on the 5th day. That will be an all-day seminar. In nature. It will be very participatory. We will do a combination of things. Sometimes, part of that will be sort of, in class, as it were, inside within conversation, with having guest speakers come in. Some of it will be, out in the community, right? And learning through the experience of, moving throughout the city in which we're located. And there are two main sort of topics for those seminars. The one is formation in our faith, right? And so some of the things that Kyra was talking about earlier, right, about the tradition in Orthodoxy of service, of hospitals and of monasteries, and the beautiful work that is in our tradition, right? That's part of, right, this. We will also connect folks to various Orthodox mentors and speakers, right, who can come in and really deepen their faith. So that will be one kind of thread of the seminar. The other thread then will be leadership development, right? And so we will really want folks to think about, like, how do you do a careful analysis of a community? How can you understand the assets of a community, right? And then how can you understand yourself, right? And think carefully about, what are the ways in which you can bring particular strengths to whatever issue you're trying to address, right? Where do you get caught up, right? What are the moments when you say get into, conflict or challenge, how do you respond to that, right? Because that will happen if you're trying to address significant issues. So there'll be a whole, thread of conversation then around leadership development. And then, bringing these things together then, we really think that we can help to equip folks, right, so that they have the hands and the mind and the heart to be effective servants of Christ in the world.
So we have a question from Rick, and it has to do with mentoring. Is there any component in the program for older people mentoring these young adults as they go through the program? Is there going to be anything like that?
Absolutely. Kyra, do you want to start on that one?
Sure,
I can follow.
sure. Absolutely. Yes. So there will be both formal and informal mentorship that will be provided for these young adults. We know that this is going to be a really intense experience. And so we want to provide the most support and guidance that we can. So, formal mentorship will certainly come from the OVC staff to the core members, from their site supervisors to the core members, from, the guest speakers and the various folks we bring in for our seminar. But then it's also really important to us that we engage members of the local community, of the local parishes, priests and lay leaders, to really invest in these young adults. So mentorship could come, in the form of even just inviting the young adults over for a meal,
right,
or
right,
welcoming them to join the Bible study or to teach Sunday school. So indeed. I think that there are many ways in which, adults can really invest in these young adults when they come to their community, and how amazing it is to think about, having, a group of really vibrant young adults in a city for some of whom it may be their first time in that city. And what can we do to really invest in them? And I think mentorship is a key way that we can do that. Michael, is there anything you would add?
No, that was great.
1-855-AF Radio. There's still some time to give us a call if you have a question about the Orthodox Volunteer Corps, Maybe you have served in some capacity in one of the various volunteer corps in our country or in our world. We would love to hear from you. So actually, that brings up the topic of the relationship of parishes to this program. So we have a lot of priests, of course, that listen to the program, and priests that are going to, we're going to need their engagement. So how does the relationship between parishes and the core members work? Is there any relationship there at all, or are people just free to kind of do what they want on Sunday?
That relationship is critical. It is critical. When Kyra started at the beginning of the program to say, here's the 4 pillars. The fourth one and the undergirding pillar for everything is church. So I would say it's important in a number of different ways. One, we are just dependent and we want to have that connection to parishes to think about drawing people into the program, right? Who in your parish might be interested in something like this? Who can you direct right to this opportunity, right? So that's one way. When the folks come and then are participating in the program, the relationship will happen in a number of ways. Number one, it could happen through some of those informal mentoring relationships that Kyra was talking about. Number two, we'd like to set up, more formal connections, right, with priests who could serve, right, as spiritual fathers to the community, right. That's three is through conversation and facilitation with the group, create the conditions for every member, right, of the community, right, of the Orthodox Volunteer Corps to begin to engage, really deeply in local parishes, right? And so what will that look like? Well, we know that the particular skills that any individual will bring, right, and the particular needs that that person has, particular skills and needs that are in any given parish, right? And so we don't want to say, okay, here's exactly what you're going to do, right? Here's exactly where you're going to go, right. But rather we want to develop organically, give freedom, right, to the individuals and to the congregation, but to set up norms, right, and practices such that really is a critical part and it flourishes in the program.
Good. And I think that, that idea is really wonderful because I'm sure that it's going to be a very engaging program, very exhausting program, but to have them connected to a parish, I think will be a sort of symbiotic relationship, if I may say so. And that is, it's not just about them benefiting from being in the parish, but I think the parish itself can be very inspired to have these very dedicated young people there talking about the work that they're doing, getting perspective from, older members. But I think it would have a tremendous impact on the parishes also. I think it's a wonderful idea.
It's so beautiful how you said that. And one of the things that we often say when we talk about Orthodox Volunteer Corps is that when we think about service, it's very important to us that we cultivate a mindset of the mutuality of service, right? That yes, you give and you receive, right? And it's this two-way street. And our ultimate goal, actually, and this is sort of the final thing I'd say about engagement with the church, with the parishes, is that our ultimate goal is formed through Orthodox Volunteer Corps experiences, that what they will do then is that they will then drive effective service for church and for world, right? And so it's that integration in a long-term sense of young adults into the church, right? Again, for service, to the world.
Good. Kyra, tell us about the rollout of the OVC. What does next year look like? And then the following year, tell us when this actually starts to gear up and where is all of this going to take place? Give us all the details.
Sure. So we are in our even though we've been planning for 2 years, we are in our first kind of official year where we have already begun our recruitment for our first cohort. So this year is focused on recruiting our young adults to apply for the program, which would start officially in fall of 2022, but applications are open now. So if you're a young adult or you know a young adult ages 21 to 29 who's interested in applying, application can be found on our website. So we are, like I said, we're recruiting for the young adults. We're building relationships in the local community where we're going to be launching. So logistically, as Michael said, we will be launching in Pittsburgh. And so securing our placements, as Michael is already hard at work doing that, and establishing relationships with the local parish is something that we're really going to focus on this year, and just getting the word out about who we are. The second year, we'll begin with our first full-time program. So fall 2022, we will have, our 6 to 8 volunteers who will have begun the program. And then in that year, we're going to start doing some research and relationship building on how we can connect to the young adults who would be interested in the part-time program that Michael was describing earlier. So for us, it's really important that we, in our first year, really lay the groundwork, establish the program, in the best way that we're able to, and then begin the part-time program. So we do have, a 4-year strategy, a 4-year plan at this point. The recruitment and relationship building in this year, launching the full-time program in 2022, in 2023, starting our part-time program, continuing the full-time program in Pittsburgh, and then beginning research to launch in a second city. So that in the 4th year, in our 4-year plan, we will have 2 full-time programs going in Pittsburgh and, God willing, in Boston, along with the part-time programs. So that's Excellent. A bit of the rollout. One really important thing to say is that part of our rollout right now is that we're hosting a launch event on November 9th at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can go to our website, orthodoxvolunteercorps.org, and register for the event. We encourage everyone to attend to learn more about the organization and the need and how you can get involved.
Yeah, we're going to post that, your website and the information about that launch. We have a last-minute caller here, so we want to bring on James. James, welcome to Ancient Faith Today. You're on the line with Orthodox Volunteer Corps, Kyra and Michael.
Yes, I'm a big fan of yours. I love listening to you. But the question is, are they going to be spread out throughout the archdiocese? Because I live in Astoria in New York, and I'm just wondering, is going to be a lot of that in parishes in New York? Because a lot of young people over here would love to do things like that.
Good question. So, Kyra and Michael, we didn't talk too much about the cities. The first city is going to be Pittsburgh, right?
Correct.
And then what happens the next year after?
Yeah, so as Kyra's mentioned, then our second city will likely be Boston, which would be in fall of 2024 is our time frame, and then we want to expand from there. Right, we want to be judicious in the expansion. We want to make sure that we're ready each time, so that we've got people in place to do it well. But New York would be phenomenal. Dallas would be phenomenal. We've got there's so many other places. So God willing, we'd love to spread across the country over time.
But the applications are open from anyone from anywhere, right?
That's exactly right. Anyone, and of course, they would need to then move the 10 months of the program. But yes, you could apply from anywhere.
Yeah. So James, obviously, anybody from New York is able to apply for the program. I don't, they'd have to get themselves there to Pittsburgh. Maybe they could have their parish, raise the money to send them here. But it's worth checking out, and then, contact Kyra and Michael and work on New York. Okay, James, thank you for calling.
Yeah,
God bless you.
I first heard that from Steve from the Youth and Young Adults, and this is where I first heard that, and that's a very, very good movement to have.
Yes,
I
agree. Thank you so much. That's a really good idea. We appreciate it. All right, guys, we're just about out of time here. Tell us how young adults apply. I do also have a question. Is it only open to Orthodox Christian young adults?
No, anyone is welcome to apply. People need to know that this is a thoroughly Orthodox program. This is the framework. This is the ethos, but anyone is welcome. Anyone is welcome to apply. And you can do so by going to our website, orthodoxvolunteercorps.org, and you'll see right on the website the link to apply.
That is awesome. Kyra Limberakis and Michael Sider-Rose, God bless you. This is an immense undertaking. I just can't tell you how excited I am, and I know many people are, about this program. This is something that I think it's something that we didn't know we needed, but now that it's almost here, I think we're going to see great things from this program, and it's going to be something that we are going to be so proud of, and we thank you both very, very much for putting this together.
Thank you,
well,
Father
Tom.
Thank you for the opportunity to
grateful.
share about it.
Absolutely. God bless your work.
Yes.
God bless your work. Before I share a few final thoughts, I want to offer my sincere thanks to Kyra Limberakis and Michael Sider-Rose for joining us tonight. Thanks also to Matushka Trudy for engineering the program, for everybody that listened in, and for our callers. Here's a few final thoughts. These are the words of St. John Chrysostom about the importance, listen to this, of seeking our salvation through helping and even fighting for others. He writes this: do not be content with seeking your own salvation, because that would mean merely losing it. At war and in the ranks, a soldier whose sole concern is to save himself by escaping ruins both himself and his fellow soldier. A brave soldier who fights for others, together with others, saves both himself and others. And that's from the 9th homily from Matthew, point 5. And that's our show for tonight. Remember to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Ancient Faith Today. Share out our program after that's posted. Give us your feedback and contact us with any ideas or topics that you might want to hear about. Join us next Tuesday evening for another edition of Ancient Faith Today. Good night, everybody.